historical event that people don't really talk about.
The day a cruise ship came.
The day Khrushchev came to Helena. Nikita Khrushchev, the former premier of the Soviet Union, when he came to Helena in 1959, people don't talk about it. It would be a great float.
Can we do that?
Of course you can do it.
It's
It's an historical fact, and it will be confirmed by one of the people who checks the historical accuracy of the parade. Me. So if you do the day Khrushchev came to Helena, it will be confirmed as historically accurate by me. Do you catch my hint, people?
Jackson.
Yes.
Then you say you could do one about pounds.
Or the day John C. Calhoun came to Helena. That too would be a good quote. Or the day that Calhoun and Khrushchev together came to Helena. Can't do Castro. I don't know if we could do Mussolini, but when Mussolini came here, that was an interesting day. All right, so let's get back to this. Hyperinflation. There are two big reasons why I told you there was hyperinflation. You know, they had to pay back the reparations. But what was the big thing? First off, hyperinflation because
No exports.
yeah, they had no exports, and therefore the government couldn't what? Tax. So they couldn't bring money in, and then what was the other thing? What was the only way they could get money? They just had to print. And what happened was hyperinflation. If a government can tax and then can pay back the money in their own currency, hyperinflation can't happen. So this one didn't work because remember they had to pay back the reparations in gold. That's why hyperinflation cannot happen here. But it happened in Zimbabwe, it's happened in Zaire, it's happened in a few other places because they had to pay back their debts in other currencies. We don't want to go to the gold standard because that might happen here then. But it'd be kind of fun, wouldn't it?
No.
Not only the chance of an economic crash, but also with the chance of hyperinflation. It would add excitement to life. And what happens if that would all, if we get hyperinflation combined with an economic crash, what would we have to do?
Speak Bulgarian.
Live in a box.
Sacrifice Canada to the God Rock.
Well, that's obviously. But live in a cardboard box where? Down by the river. We'd have no choice. There'd just be an exodus, cardboard box. We'd just be sitting there. Looking at the flaming ashes of, okay, so. And thinking, we have to sacrifice another table. All right.
Why didn't you do this sooner?
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about what happened. Here's hyperinflation. We're not going to talk about that. Well, there's a little obscure Munich, a party in Munich, a right-wing party that tried to take advantage of the hyperinflation. Their original name was the German Workers' Party. You can see it right here. See that? The DAP. D stands for what? Yeah, they don't speak, they speak some foreign language there. Why they don't speak American, I don't know. But they speak German. That's the German A. What does A stand for? Yeah, Arbeiter Workers Party. The German Workers' Party. And they were started one of these many right-wing, rabidly anti-communist parties. They had workers, veterans, a lot of members of the Free Corps. Remember the Free Corps? Well, after the big street fighting in the Weimar Republic was established, the German army was kind of worried about all these right or left-wing parties because this might lead to some kind of revolution. They realized how weak Germany was. And so they began to recruit people to infiltrate the parties. And they recruited a former soldier, decorated soldier, who was a veteran of the street fighting. He actually fought with the communists for a while. Then he fought with the Free Corps against the communists. It appeared he liked to fight. Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler was recruited as a spy, a secret policeman, to infiltrate the German Workers' Party. And because he's a spy, that's his job. So he could be there all day, while most of the people were workers. They would meet in beer halls, and they go to these beer halls at night, but Hitler began to work. There's his membership card. Adolf Hitler. Soon he realized he liked it. And the head of the party, a guy named Gregor Strasser, realized Hitler had something. Hitler had this thing. He was a veteran, so he could speak to former soldiers. And he was decorated. He had credibility, but he was a corporal. That was his highest rank, so he was not an officer. He was not part of the elite. He could speak to average Germans. He was Austrian. Now, normally this would be a negative within Germany, had a little slightly different accent. But the way Hitler spoke, that accent made him sound more like a common man. He's not speaking down to the people. He's just speaking in what they would consider to be normal workers' talk. This high German that they would speak, and in Munich. And it worked. He soon left the police, became a member of the party, and by 1922 would be the leader of it. It's pretty remarkable, but they would change the name. The German Workers' Party, there are a bunch of Workers' Party, and the problem was a lot of the Workers' Party were socialists. They didn't want to be socialists. Now, some guys joined the party thinking it was socialists, but they didn't want to lose them. So they changed the name to what?
National Socialist Party.
Yeah, the National Socialists, or the NSDAP. The National Socialist German Workers' Party. The NSDAP. That became the Nazi Party. The NSDAP. Now, technically, they were officially called the National Socialists. Most people in Germany call them National Socialists. They're the National Socialists. But the abbreviation for the NSDAP, one of the two abbreviations, obviously this, but this was didn't roll off the tongue, taking the first two letters of nationalist and the middle two letters of the German spelling of socialist, and you get Nazi or Nazi. That's where it comes from. It's just an abbreviation for National Socialists. They're the National Socialists. So I refer to them as both. You can refer to them as both. They're the same thing. They adopted the swastika, not because it had special meaning, but because a lot of the Free Corps, they wanted to have members of the party. A lot of the Free Corps in Munich had swastikas. That was their cross. So it didn't really have a special meaning, but it was a way to differentiate them. And they adopted different colors. The German flag is gold, black, and red. That is the flag of the German Republic. This was back in 1848. They used the imperial German colors, red, black, and white. Does that make sense now? You see that? We're not a democracy. Remember, fascist governments are not democracy. And they use the word socialist, but the word national differentiates them. They are right-wing. They hate the socialists. They are not left at all. They hate them. And pretty soon they would be nothing more than a relatively small group that would meet in bars, beer halls in Munich, and brawl with communists. There weren't that many of them. But during the height of hyperinflation, November 1923, Hitler and the other leaders of the National Socialists decided it's time. We can overthrow the government. We can do it. We do it in Munich. And they were only in Munich. But they thought the decrepit capital, Berlin, would just collapse. And they could ride in as conquering heroes. So what they did is, it's actually November 9th. It's going to be called the Beer Hall Putsch. Putsch means essentially like attempted coup. And here is the beginning of the coup. Meeting in the square in Munich, announcing the revolution. This is the same square that that picture of Hitler was in 1914, when they show him cheering and about ready to volunteer. These are members of the Free Corps, but you notice now they have red, black, and white swastikas trying to overthrow the city government of Munich. And this was going to be the government. A young Adolf Hitler with other leading generals. They thought they could get the military. That's General Ludendorff. Remember the name Ludendorff from World War I? They thought Ludendorff could be the figurehead, the man that the army would follow. And so Ludendorff would be part of this putsch. Well, it failed miserably. They did kind of take over part of City Hall. There were a few fights, but for the most part, nobody joined them. Nobody even knew who they were. The army and the police surrounded them, and they had to surrender. In fact, almost all the members surrendered except for Ludendorff. Ludendorff looked up at a line of German soldiers with bayonets and said essentially, "Do you know who I am? Then go ahead and shoot." And just walked. And they lifted up their guns and let them through. And Ludendorff went back to his country estate. Nothing ever happened to Ludendorff. He was quite insane by then. He would die in that estate. Hitler and the rest of the Nazis were arrested for treason. But a sympathetic judge allowed Hitler to turn the trial into a work of propaganda, where he could yell out his anti-communist ideas. Now, the judge was not a Nazi at all, but he was a rabidly anti-communist. And Hitler only got a year and a half in prison. The prison was almost like a country club, where in prison he had his personal secretary, Rudolf Hess, there. He had food catered in, people visited him, and he became nationally known. Now, let's be clear about something. Hyperinflation did not lead to Hitler taking power. Hyperinflation did not cause the Nazis to rule. Hyperinflation did not lead to World War II. During the trial, the German government made a new currency, a new mark, and they were able to reestablish control over their economy. This is said a lot by people who do not understand German history. Hyperinflation did not lead to Hitler taking power, but it did help make him a known person. But the Nazi party was actually really small and would remain small. But while Hitler was in prison, he would dictate to Hess his memoir. Now, it's a horribly written hodgepodge. I mean, you read it and you can imagine Hitler walking around this cell, it was almost like a hotel room, ranting. It's called, anyone know? Mein Kampf. All good Nazis, everybody in Germany had to have a copy of Mein Kampf.
How's that true?
You don't want to, it's illegal.
Mein Kampf's illegal.
Yeah, Mein Kampf is illegal. You can have a copy of it if it's if it's an antique, an historical piece, but you can't have a new copy of it.
Do they print new
Oh, yeah.
copies of it?
Oh yeah.
You can have it.
There's neo-Nazis. Oh yeah, you have it. Well, Mein Kampf. And Germany has free speech. Germany has very open free speech rules, except for Nazis. You can't have Mein Kampf and you can't have the swastika. There's no swastika. Yeah. Yeah, you can't do a Heil with your right hand, and you can't do Deutschland über alles. Which all it means is just Germany, a national song, but yeah, you can't do the old German national anthem.
Can you say
But,
it?
huh?
Can you say it for us?
I can, won't. So, no, I don't, I know the first line of it. In it, it's a rant, where Hitler lays out his philosophy. You get the philosophy, but it's all over the place. He is ranting about the Treaty of Versailles. Versailles, communists, then Jews did it, and Slavs, and then syphilis, and then to communism, and then back to syphilis. And it goes all over the place. He was obsessed with syphilis, there's no doubt. Something might have happened in the army, I don't know, but he is obsessed with it. And it is a horrible read, not only for its toxic philosophy, but it really is all over the place. He planned after the war to make a new one, but that one was never printed. And so you have this just disastrous, how long book? 180 pages, I think. I've read it. It's really hard to read for lots of reasons. But in it, he lays down his philosophy. And so let's get down the philosophy of the Nazis. But there's one very important thing to understand. Don't forget this. Write it near it. Those fascist elements we talked about, all there. All are there. But we have certain things that are going to be unique to Germany. First off, by the way, that's Hitler. What color is his hair?
Brown.
What color are his eyes?
Brown.
What color is his mustache?
Brown.
Red.
What color was his skin? Relatively orange. He had real health problems. And by the time the war began, he was taking a cocktail of drugs. And yeah, he was kind of orange. There he is in Munich. The first #1 thing was the evil of the Treaty of Versailles. Versailles, and this map shows Germany, and all this land here, where's my mouse, was taken away from Germany. This area here was demilitarized. Germany lost her colonies, forced to pay reparations. The Treaty of Versailles is going to run through the vein of Mein Kampf, all through the book, and be one of the great appeals. Even if people didn't like the Nazis for a lot of reasons, here was a leader saying, I will return Germany to its greatness and get revenge for Versailles. Remember nationalism? That was the biggest element of his nationalism. Germany had to sign this. Now, there's a myth in Germany after the war that Germany did not really lose the war. The soldiers marched home in good order. They were not decisively defeated on the battlefield. So there's a feeling in Germany, oh, they beat Russia. There's a feeling that Germany was forced to sign it. And who did it? Well, obviously, the Western Allies. But also, there must have been something within Germany. Traitors within Germany. They called it this is what you have to get down, the stab in the back. Somebody within Germany stabbed us in the back and made us sign this. And this is going to be a really toxic idea, because that means that people who claim to be Germans, German citizens, are traitors. Doesn't this though fit in with totalitarianism? You root out the enemies, you find dissent, it fits in perfectly. There are traitors in our midst. And this is going to happen in a lot of countries. There'll be a stab in the back philosophy when Germany lost their colonies in the 1960s. In France, they almost became a dictatorship, a stab in the back because of Vietnam and Algeria. In the United States, it is still a toxic issue about Vietnam. That somehow there were traitors within the United States causing the United States to lose in Vietnam. A real toxic philosophy. And so with this, Germany would be huge. Who did it? Two. Versailles and the stab in the back force and the sign. Two, who did it? Well, we need scapegoats. And scapegoats. Scapegoats. And who are the scapegoats? Somebody to blame. You need somebody to blame. Well, they're fascists, remember? So who's the number one people to blame? Communists. And this shows the hammer and sickle, right? Hammer and sickle would become the symbol of and on the flag of what country? Not Russia. The USSR, the Soviet Union. You see it? Right there is the Soviet flag. We're not, if I would have been in high school and a teacher would have the Soviet flag, it would have been a big controversial issue. Now I was like, oh, look at that, the Soviet flag. Now you're all going to run home and say, Mr. Partridge is trying to make us communists. Fascism. Some ism. Tomorrow will be a new ism, right? Every day a new ism. Soon we'll be nihilists. All right, so we hate civilization. Yes. Anarchist is more socialist. Nihilists hate everybody. I forgot what I was going to say now. Exactly. All right, so communists. But who else? Remember for World War I, we talked about the different nationalities. The Russians are this ethnic group. Poles are this ethnic group. Serbs are this ethnic group. Croatians are this ethnic group. What ethnic group? They wanted their own country. It would be these nationalists that would assassinate Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Someone said what? Slavs. No, the next big ethnic or scapegoat of Slavs. The Slavs in Eastern Europe who want to weaken the pure German race. Slavs, like the Poles, Serbs, or Russians. Slav, Ukrainians too. Next, bankers. Bankers who got rich loaning money during the war, then they got rich foreclosing on them. Didn't have to be just German bankers, but French bankers, British bankers, American bankers. These form of capitalists that were nothing more than vultures. Next, they hated the,
Aren't they like pro-capitalism though?
some capitalists, the good capitalists, the true Germans. Yeah, they're pro some capitalists. What capitalists? The ones who gave to the Nazi Party. Hey, they don't need to be consistent. They just need to be loud. Did you catch my meaning?
Yeah.
And just repeat it over. In fact, here's another way to look at it. They don't need to be consistent. They don't need to be accurate. They just need to believe. I believe I'm right. The rest of you, I don't care. Hmm? Our corpse? Our corpse. I know. We'll get to that quote in just 1 second. Next. Same thing. Liberals, Democrats. They hate liberals, they hate Democrats. Think in terms, don't think U.S. political parties. Think democracy, liberals. They weaken you. They allow the communists in. They make you weak. They divide you. People become selfish and forget about the state. They also hate intellectuals in science. Anti-intellectual, anti-science. Anti-intellectual, anti-science. The Germans hated scientists.
Kind of
Not all.
that.
Like, yeah.
Well, they liked fake science,
Yeah, that was.
but they didn't like real science. Sure. They did not like real science. Partially because a lot of scientists had something in common. Have you heard of a guy named Einstein who's a German? He had to flee. There's a reason why. What is that reason? Lastly, who's behind them all? Many of the leading communists were this. The largest population of this certain group lived with the Slavs. Many of them were bankers, intellectuals, Democrats, Jews. The Jews dominated. This was an effort by the Jews to undermine society. This is how they did it. They got the Slavs to be their slaves. They took over science. They weakened you through democracy. They got the socialists to take over. Which, by the way, there's a lot of inconsistencies here. Who cares? They're out to get you. Yes.
Slavery and labor doing all this. Like, did he have a huge just hatred for the Jews, or was it more like
Oh, yeah.
he saw the option to take?
No, he hated.
He did.
A lot of people joined the Nazi Party might have saw this as an opportunistic way to get power. He hated. Nah, lots of. We don't know for sure. Almost certainly something that happened when he was younger. A lot of resentment. He is somebody. A lot of people, especially ultra right wing or ideological people, really have these seething resentments. You know, somebody did this to me, and I'm going to get him. So something happened.
Didn't he hate like all religions though?
Yeah, well, he didn't trust religions, and also religion. You're not loyal to the state. So he did not trust Catholics. He did not trust Lutherans. Yeah. And so that picture right here, that is a horrific caricature of a Jew, and with the Soviet flag over him. Jews. There is a Jew, a caricature of a Jew, hiding behind Soviet, American, and British flag. It was Roosevelt, or Rosa Jew, is what he'd be called. Oh no, it's. But the idea is that the Jews were dominating, running everything. They're behind everything. And a couple things. This was a very anti-Semitic time. So yeah, why not? Nobody liked the bankers, especially after hyperinflation. So let's blame the Jews. And there was a small percentage of Jews of the population, less than 1 million Jews in Germany. And they had almost completely assimilated into German culture. All the Jews in Germany spoke German. They were drafted into the army in World War I. They're still serving in the army. They're in government seats. They're a part of Germany. And so for the most part, this seemed kind of ridiculous. That's why it worked. Nobody believed it. They could just be the evil Jew is someplace outside. The other. It's not us. Until it's too late. Until it's too late in the action. He did mean that. So, that's it. Next, why are they out to get us? Oh. Let's go not to this one. Let's go to the master race. Because we are the master race. The Übermenschen. This goes back to the philosopher Nietzsche. Some of you who remember AP Euro were in it. They should remember Nietzsche for this. And this idea of, remember, talking about Aryans in German culture. There's something special about Germans and this Aryan ideal. And this is where you get these propaganda posters. They would use all the time to push this. There was no posters of any people, individuals, except for Hitler and leaders of the party. Everybody else was generic. This is a generic, idealized, muscular, handsome, beautiful German family. You see it? The children.
Nobody wanted to question.
We'll get back to that. Here, an idealized young girl, this classic Aryan features, which remember I told you, that's fake science. So you mentioned Mengele and all that. That's when they're searching the fake science of Aryan. It's just all fake. Oh, I almost forgot something about the scientists. Since I'm actually really happy that Nazi Germany lost World War II. I know some of you think, well, should I show my bias that obvious? I think I will for this. I don't like cannibalism. I'm against slavery. And I don't like Nazis. I know, I'm taking a stand, aren't I? That's what we call going out on an edge. All right? I'm looking over the cliff, but I'm not going to back down. Yeah, I'm taking a stand against Nazis. So I'm glad they lost. And I'm really glad he was anti-science. Because think of all the scientists that had to flee Germany.
Where did they go?
Oh, most of them went to Britain, but then a lot went to the United States. Britain would loan some, and they fled the fascists. It would be those scientists who would make something called the atomic bomb. Have you heard of that thing? These are guys fleeing Germany. I don't know if Germany could have made one, but I don't like to think about it. Yes.
Didn't like a lot of science come out of like what they did at the concentration camps?
Fake science. Nothing came out. Nothing came out of it that was actually real science.
Oh, so they didn't like, I don't know, because I read somewhere that they like made some vaccines or whatever.
No, they just.
I didn't know.
So here's the deal with the master race then. This is Aryan, that they are superior. And what about Hitler? Hitler had brown hair, brown eyes, right? So, remember I told you about fake science? Well, they looked at Germans, and the people with German parents, and even got blonde parents, but the children might not be blonde. That's happened, right? So, they actually came up with a measurement where they would measure the size of the forehead. The big one was this distance between your hairline and your eyes, distance between the eyes with the nose, all these things. They would measure it to tell the idealized Aryan face. So just in case they weren't blonde-haired, blue-eyed, they could still tell if they're Aryan. This was science. And this might shock you. You might want to grab your desk. But guess what the idealized Aryan face, who it almost perfectly matched? Hitler. Scientifically, he was an Aryan. The perfect Aryan. Yeah, that's how they got around that little issue. And Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, which started as his private guard, but eventually run the concentration camps, the death camps, and be the most fanatical soldiers. He had brown hair, but the perfect face. Totally. All right, that's the master race. They're all jealous of us. And we are weak, though, Germans, unless we're democracy or I'm looking for the mouse. So that is where we get the concept of the Volk. Das Volk essentially means the people, but another way to look at it is the mass. And that's why I showed these two pictures. This is a Hitler at Nuremberg, where he'd have some of his most famous rallies. This stadium is still there. It's really eerie. There's grass growing up between the cracks of the cement. It's just kind of there. There's a couple shells and what we're. Did you? You can't help it. You go through it and it's kind of tickle the back of your neck. It's really scary because it's just big, huge, empty. So look at this mass rally. What's the difference between these people? No. All these. Is there any difference? There's no individuality. It's just the mass. You're not an individual. You're a mass. As an individual, you're weak. You're expendable. Together, we are strong. The mass. The German people. I love this. All listening to their fear. And what is this thing? The radio. Everybody got a radio for propaganda. The people. The mass. And that fits in with fascism. Next. We're not going to talk about eugenics. Lebensraum. What about these people? The German population is growing, and their plan was to grow the population more. If they are the master race, shouldn't they have more land? Lebensraum means living space. Living space. The Germans need land. And this map shows in Russia and the Baltic states and Poland, all these areas where there are German peoples. And what's it implying is the Slavs have this land, and they're just wasting it. Lebensraum means we're going to have to get land in the east. Land in the east. There's no like master plan for war or taking over the world. Hitler was an opportunist. Just an opportunist. He's just going to take what he can get. But always land in the east. And that's going to set up a war between what two countries? The struggle, and it's inevitable, between whom? The Soviets and the Germans. The Nazis and the communists. It's coming. The war. And Hitler always talked about it. That would be the militaristic part. And when we
What was that picture?
here? Oh, this one showing how 42 million in France, yeah, actually a little bit more, 47 million United Kingdom, but Germany had over 100 million. They need space. They had over 100 million because by then they had annexed Austria. And lastly, the leader. The fear principle. Follow the leader. We already talked about this with fascism. All follow. These are members of the SS, the Staatsstufel, which was at first his very elite private guard, but like I told you, they would be the ones running the concentration camps, and then the death camps. That is the head of it, Heinrich Himmler. And same deal as fascism. The leader speaks for all. The party speaks for all. And how he promoted this and how he did it was through propaganda. And where did I put that? In Mein Kampf, Hitler showed he had a knack, a gift for propaganda. Hitler was not a brilliant man. He wasn't dumb, but he wasn't overly smart. But he was audacious and he knew how to work crowds. Yeah, a lot of people have said this, and I've heard this a lot, that people have said, you know, Hitler was a genius, but he was a horrible person. No, he wasn't. He wasn't a genius at all. He would prove that many times. He was a horrific military leader. Horrific's not strong enough of a word, how bad he was. Once again, thankfully. But some of his quotes on propaganda are masterful. Propaganda does not have multiple shadings. It has a positive and a negative. Love or hate, right or wrong, truth or lie. Never half this way, half that way. Propaganda. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Another one. The receptivity of the great masses is very limited. Their intelligence small, but their powers of forgetting enormous. So what's he saying? Most people are stupid. They forget things. So what do? In consequence of these facts, all effective propaganda must be limited to a few points and must harp on these in slogans until the last member of the public understands. Keep it simple because people are stupid, and then do what? Repeat it, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it, and then you repeat it. And then what do? And then my slogan that Cody mentioned before, it's one of the greatest slogans about Hitler's idea of propaganda. The great masses of the people will fall victim to the big lie, much more than the small lie. Easily fall victims to a big lie than a small lie. A big lie. If you're going to lie to the people, make it big, because it will stick. Small lies, people are like, big lie, he's got to be telling the truth. That can't be true. The big lie. The Jews are causing all their problems. It's the big lie. And people do it today. The masters of propaganda. In your lifetime it happened. Here, the big lie. So it works. Yeah, still a majority of the population, up until relatively recently, still thought that Iraq, the country of Iraq, and Saddam Hussein was part of the September 11th bombing. When actually, he was mortal enemies with Al-Qaeda. The big lie works. It sticks like a virus, like a parasite. By the way, don't eat swordfish. All right, next. So that is the idea of this. Huh? You don't know? Worms. Swordfish are really susceptible to these big, huge parasitic worms, and I'm just not a fan. It won't kill you, but I don't like it. All right, so Hitler, but here's the thing. For the most part, the Nazis were a small part. Hitler was nothing more than a local politician. In fact, he couldn't run for government again because he was out when he got out of prison. But there were a few flaws in the Constitution, the German Constitution. I'll get to in a second. But in 1929, what happened?
The Depression.
The Depression. The Depression hit. And when the Depression hit, Germany was crushed by it. Germany was crushed by it, partially because the economy was still relatively weak. But what happened was this. Everyone get the Depression down? Hitler would never have taken power without the Depression. Never. Would not have happened. Period. The Depression hit. And then the German government, worried about debt, worried about still going back to hyperinflation, even though this didn't cause the hyperinflation, the German government did austerity. They radically cut spending because deficits go up in a depression. Remember, tax revenues go down. So they, remember, austerity is cut government spending. And they radically cut it and insisted on remaining on the gold standard. Because of this, the debt deflation cycle got worse and worse and worse. By the way, tomorrow on the test, you do have to know all the causes of the Great Depression to where we quit today. And I gave you a number of causes of the Depression, didn't I? So you will have to know a lot of them. And don't forget the maths, individually, but together. I just gave you a hint. Did you catch it? Okay. 10, 15, 20. Couple, don't worry about it. Gold. They stayed on it. So the German economy was worse than other places. Unemployment in Berlin was 50%. Nationwide, it was over 33%. Most in the Ruhr Valley, their most industrialized area, as high as 45%. So who became popular? The two biggest parties became the communists, and then especially when the capitalists feared the communists, they started giving more and more money to Hitler and the Nazis. The Nazis did not become a national party until the Depression, where they said, we will solve the Depression. And how will we do that? By making Germany great again. Austerity and depression has brought a fascist government back to Europe. Hungary has a neo-fascist government because of austerity and depression now. In Greece, they have a left-wing kind of a combination socialist party government in charge now, but the second largest party, fascist. Bad economy, high unemployment, people terrified about their next meal. Remember what I told you? That leads to extremes. That's how you get revolution. And if you think, well, that's those crazy foreigners. We're Americans. Come on. It can happen here too. Next thing you know, Garrett will take charge. Yeah, and he's already going. Him and the robot over. Yeah. All right, and there's a fascist party going in Spain too. Yeah, it's more of a right-wing anti-Semitic. They got some. It's a weird, but they're fascist. All right, so let's get back to this. So, by 1932, there's street fighting. The Depression is the worst. Supporters of the Nazis are brawling with communists. The largest group in the Reichstag, the German parliament, remember I mentioned this yesterday? The largest group now are the Nazis, but only about 30%. The second largest are the communists. And in the middle is the shaky coalition of about 15 parties that are barely holding on. And there's outright brawling. followers of the Nazis, his own, well, he didn't have full control of them. His private army were called the SA. Originally, this meant sports battalion, and then became stormtroopers. They wore brown uniforms. They got a good deal. Seriously. And they would fight communists in the street. All the Nazi members of the Reichstag would all sit in brown uniforms, and they would disrupt Parliament and make sure it wouldn't work. Like, for example, anytime another speaker would speak, they would start yelling slogans or sing, or they would all stand together and turn their back and yell. Or in the middle of a speech, they would all get up and start banging drums and go through a procession. They made sure Parliament didn't work. There was government after government, and they all collapsed. But in December of 1932, remember, Roosevelt was just elected a month before this. Another election for the Reichstag. The communists gained seats. The Nazis lost seats. The middle party lost seats. And the middle is going, oh my God, what might happen? Communists. January 1933, those middle parties made a deal with the devil. They asked the Nazis to join them. And Hitler, as leader of the largest party now in that coalition, he became the executive called the Chancellor. Hitler, because he's the head of the largest party in this coalition. There were other members of the party in there, but that's Hitler. That's how he took power. It's pretty remarkable how this happened. The Nazis actually lost strength. The communists gained strength, and that's how Hitler took power. Fear of the communists. Purely constitutional. This is how their constitution functioned. So, Hitler's chancellor. A month later,
What percentage of the seats did the communists have?
they both were floating around in the mid-30s. So the Nazis had about 38, and the communists had about 33%. Nobody had a majority.
Did they change the constitution afterwards?
They didn't need to. I'll tell you in a second.
But I think after World War II.
Oh yeah, they have the same base. It's still the same basic constitution, but they have some things taken out. And then in February, the Reichstag burned down. Actually, it didn't burn down, but the Reichstag caught fire. And in the basement, one of the sub-basements of the Reichstag, they found a babbling, naked Dutch communist by the name of Maris von Lubbe. Von Lubbe, a Dutch communist. He had gasoline-soaked rags and an empty gas can. Obviously, Lubbe did it, but he didn't do it alone. Who did it? And the communists, meaning from Moscow. This is an attack on by the Soviets on the Germans. To this day, we don't know. It could have been him. It could have been the Nazis. It doesn't really matter because Hitler took advantage of this. There's a fluke, a quirk in the German Constitution that says, in a state of emergency, the Chancellor can take over the powers of dictator until the state of emergency ends. Just a little quirk, right? So, what did Hitler announce? A state of emergency. He became dictator until the emergency was over. And what's the first thing he banned?
Free speech.
Not yet. The communists. And then a new Reichstag would vote in the Enabling Act. And the Enabling Act said the state of emergency will continue until the Chancellor says it's done. Does that make sense? It continued the state of emergency. When would Hitler announce the state of emergency being over? He didn't. Yeah, because on April 30th, 1945, he committed suicide.
We're so sad.
Yeah, I know. Well, they actually reanimated his brain. And who did he meet? Who did he meet with after? Yeah, the reanimated head of John F. Kennedy met with the reanimated brain of Adolf Hitler, and they're creating a race of super alien reptoids.
And that's where Scientology comes
We're doing the Kennedy assassination, finishing up in special topics. But the Enabling Act. He began a state of emergency, and that's how he began the dictatorship. And slowly but surely, he took power. Almost immediately after that, what do you do with all these communists now? They would be arrested for their own self-protection and put in the first of the concentration camps. Where would this concentration camp be? Right outside of Munich at an old munitions factory called Dachau. Dachau would be the first. Soon there would be hundreds. Now, these are concentration camps. These are not death camps, even though thousands would die there. These were meant to be basically torture. Remember what I told you in a totalitarian state? Terror. And everybody who, or anybody who was a threat to the state was put in there, meaning all other leaders of every political party, all leaders of labor unions, almost all teachers. I'd be gone. Because I've already made it clear, and it's on film, that I don't like nonsense. Wait, and don't forget though, he started trickle-down economics and got the economy running again though.
Trickle down.
Did I say trickle-down? I meant Keynesian. Keynesian.
I was like, trickle down. How do you pull that out? I really want to know how that works.
Sorry.
Sixth grade.
Sixth period, yeah.
So what are some of the people that was going to be
So the text, there's going to be a couple questions from the reading, the text. So I'm going to ask you something about Dunkirk and appeasement. That's from your textbook. And then the rest will be right into here. Okay. Dunkirk and appeasement. Dunkirk's where the British were able to save some of their army after the Battle of France. And appeasement, just look up Munich and you'll get it.
Okay, and we can take it Friday at lunch.
Yeah, Friday at lunch. We'll see. We might do it a little bit earlier Friday. We'll get it done.
And I have a question about when the Great Depression started, the credit freeze. How was it working right now?
The credit freeze, what that meant is because of the financial problems. You have no financial regulation. When all the banks began to fail, what that meant is that banks put money. And that's the credit freeze. And so that makes the problem, the shortage of demand even bigger.
So, because it didn't belong to industry.
Or loan to people buying stuff. And nobody could loan. And so basically money didn't transfer. Yeah.
Reading quality work.
You gotta read it. It's an interesting book. He's a nut.
Yeah.
He's an absolute nut.
Oh, wow.
So the papers are due today. I'm going to talk. We're going to do a couple presentations and go from there. Not yours. You can do yours tomorrow. Okay. But Jamie is going to go today for sure. And someday I got to clean my desk. My desk is really messy.
Well, we don't have those things where like they just do some weird opening desks and like keep all your shoes. You know, like,
All the desks that were like in elementary school.
yeah, that would be awful.
Well, especially if you had, if you had 6 classes and had to come back. I'm putting wacky hats on my desk.
Huh?
Huh?
Hey?
There were these goofy stickers when I was a kid, and I got in trouble for putting them on my little elementary school desk or the little desk. You put all your stuff in. Got in trouble. Jamie mentioned the little desk.
Can I write on it?
Yes, you can write it. Since everyone else done taken.
Okay.
And for this, just Social Security, Wagner-Act, and Glass-Steagall, just give me a sentence explaining what it did.
Okay.
It caused this, it regulated this, something like that.
Okay. Perfect.
It is perfect. Absolutely.
Except I can't remember what. And I just studied BuzzFeed.